All right, we're going to get right to it. We're getting ready to talk about one of the most controversial things that can be discussed, and it's Israel Palestine. It's Donald Trump versus Joe Biden. And maybe I can kind of back into this a little bit. Let me give you the context. So I voted for Trump. I voted for Trump. And one of the things when I was voting for him that I was worried about the most was if he would allow Israel or back Israel to destroy and commit a genocide against the Palestinian people. I thought that, well, Joe Biden and Kamala Harris, based on them not trying to produce a ceasefire, even though you had people like AOC talking about Kamala Harris has been working tirelessly to reach this ceasefire. It seemed like always to me that Joe Biden and the Democrats were sending bullets and guns and weapons to Israel while sending sandwiches and juice and water to Palestinians. That was just my take, just from my observations. So now, fast forward, we've seen some things come out lately where apparently Joe Biden and Kamala Harris never ever even asked, pressured at all, Israel to have a ceasefire with Palestine and or Hamas, however you look at it. So going back to when I was making my decision of who to vote for, I always said, like, yo, this is going to be an issue. I hope Trump does the right thing. You know, Trump had called out, or he did an interview with the rabbis. I believe it was two rabbis where he said, like, hey, you know, this has to be done soon, putting some pressure that I hadn't seen an American politician, especially in the role of president, put on Israel like I saw Trump putting on Israel. But then, you know, you have to take into account Trump seemed like he always had a good relationship with Netanyahu. And then when he won the election, Netanyahu was celebrating. And it seemed like things were going down a path where Americans were being used, for our tax dollars were being used to commit a genocide against Palestine, to support Israel in committing a genocide against Palestine. So now recent reports have come out where apparently Trump and Netanyahu have cut ties, communication, and Trump feels that had been and decided to stop the communication because he felt that he was getting manipulated by Netanyahu. And you hear different stories come out, and it's very hard to decipher between what's real, what's fake, what's believable, all these different things. You just never know. You hear them from one side and it sounds believable. You hear it from another side and it sounds believable. And then you're always nervous about, well, what can I say? What can I say? You're going to get canceled, all these different things. So there's a lot of factors that go into it in understanding the dynamics of the entire situation and then expressing your perspective on the entire situation. Now, some people may say, hey, you shouldn't have a perspective on it. Yeah, right, whatever. I'm going to have a perspective on it, especially when it comes to American tax dollars being contributed to support one side or another. So that just is what it is. We're allowed to have an opinion. And I think that a lot of times when we get scared to have certain opinions, it's for the exact reasons why we need to voice our opinions. Because why are we so scared to have an opinion? Oh, something's going to happen to me, or I'm going to lose my job, or I'm going to lose this opportunity. I'm going to lose all these things. Don't we think that those people, whoever we're scared of, they know that? So they're going to use that to their advantage to possibly do certain things that they know they can get away with if we didn't have that scared energy to express our perspective on it. So this is just kind of giving y'all the context around it. So I saw a couple clips that I want to go over. I saw a couple clips. One was on breaking points. Let me see if I can pull that one up. One was on breaking points, and I want to go through. There we go. I want to go through this conversation that they were having. They were talking about a documentary that just came out, different clips from it, how it shows different perspectives from Israel, of what is going on in that region, what's the real goals, and then it goes into what Biden and Harris were doing during the time that they were expressing to the American people that they were working towards a ceasefire. Were they not? And then we'll bring in an AOC clip as well to highlight certain things and kind of just build off the conversation from there. So let me start this video. As always, you guys give me your thoughts. Sorry if I sound a little nasally. I'm dealing with like a post nasal drip or a nasal. I don't even know what it is. Dealing with something over here, but y'all know we keep it pushing. So let's take a look at this video. You guys give me your thoughts and let me know. Let me know if this is something that you knew all along, if this is a surprise or whatever else may be on your mind. Let's start it here.
He interviewed Daniela Weiss, among others, and she really is sort of like the godmother of the settler movement. And I really recommend people listen to what she has to say about what the Israeli government's program is, because what I've found is that the more like extremist elements within Israel are much more upfront and much more accurate about the actual project that Israel is engaging in at this point. So let's go ahead and take a listen to a little bit of that documentary.
So the idea is to force the government by putting people, starts with small settlements, then they get bigger, then they get recognized by the state of Israel, and basically creating a new demographic reality.
We do not force the government. We do for governments what they cannot do for themselves. Even if you take Netanyahu now, he is very happy with what we do here and also about our plans to build Jewish communities in Gaza. He's happy about it, but he cannot say it. He says the opposite. It's not realistic. Good! We will make it realistic. It's not forcing the government, it's helping the government. It's step number one in politics. You don't force the government, you give the government the courage, the ability, the public support, the political support. I think you understand what I said, even if you disagree.
And I think we do understand, Emily. I think she makes it quite plain. And what Louis, really uncovers, this won't be surprising to people who have followed this closely, is just how much of the illegal settlement activity and the violence against Palestinians is directly backed by the Israeli government. And Daniela is correct. She has, she's absolutely 100% correct that what they are doing is with the tacit support of the government and helps to enable the, explicit project of Netanyahu and his coalition.
So that was a little heavy to hear. And that's something that we've talked about or we've heard about for a very long time, where at first it was just about protection, right? Defending ourselves. But people always raise questions that some will probably never know the answers to. Why did it take so long for the Israeli Defense Forces to respond to the attack on October 7th? Why did, certain things, or it seemed like they had fair warning about something getting ready to happen and they didn't take the proper precautions, even though that they have a very solid defense and military. And questions like this would always come up, and it seemed as if, just being totally honest, like, oh, okay, they're going to use this to justify taking over more land, taking over more parts of Gaza, taking over more of the Palestinian land, and developing more Jewish settlements on there and growing Israel. It just seemed like that. Just being totally honest. And going back to what I said earlier about, it's scary kind of to say these things. I'll be totally honest, and I'm sure a lot of other people feel the same way. When you talk about Israel, when you talk about Jewish people, there's something in your stomach. Like there's something that's just like, ooh, it's like, bro, you sure you want to have this conversation? Like it's one of those things. And those are the conversations that we need to have. Just my opinion. So the lady Daniela, she laid it out pretty clearly. We're helping the government. We're doing what they can't do. Netanyahu can't come out and say what the exact plans are, but we can. We can encourage Netanyahu to continue forward with the plans because we're in support of it. We can put the battery in Netanyahu's back to continue doing what he may not be able to say out in the public, but what is the clear plan based on what she's saying. So let's continue with the video. And what are your guys' thoughts on this? Are you surprised when you hear what she's saying?
I was thinking about that clip while we were watching Medea Benjamin kind of shout at Ben-Gvir, because in a sense, it is so much more, as she says at the end, I think you understand what I'm saying, even if you disagree with it. It is so much more like so much more respectable to be Daniela Weiss and Ben-Gvir than to be Benjamin Netanyahu, because it is, or to be, for example, Joe Biden or the Republicans who try to have it both ways and say, this is not what we're doing, but this is what we're doing. The at least like transparency of the project that they're involved in is so much clearer and more discernible than the people who try to have it both ways and say, nope, we're following all international law. This is, we are doing everything right. It's you who are in the wrong here. No, they're being honest about what the project actually is. And again, most people disagree with it very strongly. But, it just seeing that puts in stark contrast the sort of muddled BS that you get from Netanyahu and Joe Biden. And I mentioned Biden in particular because we have the next element to put up on the screen, D3. This is some reporting from DropSite about the quote unquote tireless work that Biden was putting in to get a ceasefire. And Crystal, just wanted to see your reaction to this DropSite story and a little bit more from it as well.
Yeah, so this is a synopsis of an Israeli Channel 13 investigation. And, it's incredible how the information you can get from the Israeli press that will never be repeated in the U.S. media. But in any case, the former Israeli ambassador, Michael Herzog, said, God did the state of Israel a favor that Biden was the president during this period. We fought in Gaza for over a year. The administration never came to us and said, ceasefire now. It never did. And that's not to be taken for granted. So, you can't help but think of AOC at the DNC saying Kamala Harris is working tirelessly for a ceasefire. In fact, I saw Ilhan Omar kind of take a shot on Twitter saying, oh, look, it turns out they were, as we all expected, they were never working tirelessly for a ceasefire.
And she is working tirelessly to secure a ceasefire in Gaza and bringing hostages home.
Seems like that wasn't the case. Seems like Kamala Harris and Joe Biden weren't working tirelessly to bring hostages home. Based on that report, they never even asked for a ceasefire, never pressured Israel and Benjamin Netanyahu for a ceasefire. And this is supposed to be the Democratic Party, the party that is, if you're going to say anti-Israel occupation of Gaza, and more pro-Palestinian, if you're just going to break it down black and white, that would be more of the Democratic Party, I thought. But see, what seems to be happening is we're getting a reminder that it's not about Democrat versus Republican. Because when you hear people like Dave Smith, when you hear people like Candace Owens, when you hear people that are conservative, like Tucker Carlson, but are willing to just look at that situation and say, nah, like, I don't even know why we're getting involved in that. And just from an American first standpoint, I don't see why we need to be supporting Israel in doing whatever it is that they're doing. And then a lot of them even take it a step further and say, this is morally wrong. This is genocide. And that's the conservatives. Then you'll see a lot of people on the Democratic side. You'll hear the people like Ilhan Omar, who they just referenced, calling out the fact that the government is not putting pressure, the U.S. government is not putting pressure on Israel and Benjamin Netanyahu to create a ceasefire, to push for a ceasefire. But then you have AOC and a whole bunch of others, like a Biden, acting as if they are, playing both sides. This is why people, to Emily's point, I believe that was Emily that was speaking, when she said, you can respect the transparency and honesty of the lady Daniela. You may not agree with her, which I definitely don't, but at least she's being honest and transparent, because then you can have a real conversation about it. Then you can understand, like, oh, that's what this side is thinking. Yeah, I can't align myself with that. Or maybe the other way. But when you have people playing both sides, like a AOC, like a Joe Biden, like a Kamala Harris, acting as if they're for one group in front of the people because they want to appeal to voters, and then doing something totally different, it eventually gets called out. And that's what we're seeing right now. So let's continue with the video, and let's see what else they have to say.
And, you know, the Democratic base and much of the country has completely turned against Israel in an extraordinary manner. Because even in spite of the wave of propaganda we are fed about what is being done in the Gaza Strip, it could not help but break through. The images, the immorality, the war crimes, the starvation, the utter decimation of the Gaza Strip broke through. And people are looking at that with horror and say, how can my tax dollars go to support this? I don't want to be any part of this. And so to have it overtly said, what we all knew, what we all expected, but just to be brazenly open about it.
And you know, another thing that I'm noticing, and I think I've done it as well, where when we're a little bit hesitant to say, no, I think this is morally wrong, and it may be for good reasons, because we don't know the entirety of the situation, know exactly what's going on, right? So we'll sit here and say, well, I don't want my tax dollars going towards it. When in all actuality, what we really want to say is, nah, I think this is wrong and I don't support it. But we'll sit here and say, oh yeah, this is a comfortable out where I can just say, I don't want my tax dollars going towards it. Rather than saying, nah, it's a genocide. I don't agree with it. It's morally wrong. It's despicable. And something needs to be done here. And I'm calling myself out as I'm seeing other people do it as well, because I know what's going through their minds. Well, I can only assume, but I know what goes through my mind when I have a lot of these conversations, just being totally transparent with y'all.
No, the Biden administration, they didn't want a ceasefire. They didn't ask for a ceasefire. They never did. And so there was always a question, Emily, during the Biden administration of whether, you know, they really wanted the war to end, but they just were afraid of the political pressure and they didn't want to apply leverage, but really they'd like it if the bomb stopped or whatever. And I think that this demonstrates that Biden himself, who, you know, was a kind of dyed-in-the-wool ideological Zionist, committed to it, had an outdated view of Israel forged in like 1972 or whatever, that he supported this. He never asked for it to stop. He was not working tirelessly for a ceasefire. Kamala Harris certainly was not working tirelessly for a ceasefire, in spite of the fact that, yeah, at this point, the people who have power and are running the show and are driving the agenda within Israel are Daniela Weiss, much more than any sort of like rump liberal internationalist political group that may still sort of like exist on the margins within Israel. It is Itamar Ben-Gvir. It is Daniela Weiss who are driving the train and running the show. And so what I've been saying for a while is, you know, if you had been listening to Daniela Weiss and Smotrich and Ben-Gvir and the most alarmist lefties from the beginning, you know, from October 8th, about what was going to unfold and what that was going to look like, you would have a much, much, much more accurate, greater understanding of everything that unfolded from then until now.
Did you hear what she just said? She said, if you were listening to more of these extremists, I forget the gentleman's name that they always mention, Ben-Gvir, I forget his name, and then like the lady Daniela and the more extremist on that side, you would have had, if we listened to them on October 8th, we would have had a more clearer picture painted for us as far as what was getting ready to happen and the mindset and the perspective and the goals of what was getting ready to happen as far as Israel defending themselves against Palestine. And I started to make air quotes when I say defending, because it seems like that whole defending word is being used to be on the offensive in a very aggressive way, to the point where it's gone beyond being humane, in my opinion. But that's for all of us to decide, I guess, on our own, what we're okay with, what we're not okay with. So let me ask you the question. What are you okay with? What are you okay with? What are you comfortable not saying anything about? Do you have just so many problems in your own life that you don't feel the need to even give this any time, effort, energy? I don't know. I don't know. It's a tough one. It's a tough one. We'll listen to maybe a couple more seconds of this and then we'll be on our way.
There is a little bit of possible, there's some talks going on about a potential ceasefire. I'm not even going to come close to getting my hopes up at this point because it just looks so incredibly dire. And this comes at a time too, we could put the next piece up on the screen. Whoever is left in Gaza, however many people are left, 2 million, maybe less, according to Trump and things that he's said, they're being starved to death in real time right now. Nothing has entered, this is from the American Conservative, nothing has entered Gaza for more than 50 days. Charity kitchens, now they've said they are out completely of food. They're shuttering services. 2 million people on the brink. We are currently witnessing Israel's solution to the Gaza question, an unmistakable humanitarian crisis engineered by the Israeli government to remove from its borders an entire people it has deemed the equivalent of locusts. That's where we are. I mean, and all of the debate about, from the early days, did they really bomb a hospital? They would never do that. And here's our PowerPoint presentation about the real tunnels and all of that. I mean, now there's just no even pretense anymore, Emily.
And this is, so again, it's not entirely surprising that the American Conservative would publish a sort of realist and, been smeared by, conservatives for a really long time. But it gets back to Ben-Gvir, Danielle Weiss, the at least like consistency of their argument, which is that, yes, the people of Gaza, the people of the West Bank, but especially the people of Gaza in this context, starve them. This is war. Like that's their argument, and they're honest about it. Whereas the Netanyahus of the world will, say this is, we're doing the best that we can. This is we did this, we did that. We follow all the rules. This is totally in compliance. We're doing the best we can under tough circumstances. When in reality, there's this underlying sort of ideological marriage of the millenarian approach of people who are trying to settle areas of the West Bank, but then also the secular people who believe, secular Zionists who want Israel to sort of be protected from enemies. They are not honest about the means to that end. They both share the same end, which is more land and in all of the various ways to accomplish that, but they're not honest that they are pursuing those means to that end. And that contrast is really clear when you watch the documentary, especially.
I agree. We're in a tough situation. Tough situation for humanity. It is a tough situation for humanity. And I think the best thing that we can do, and I think we owe it to each other. It always reminds me of, when I think about one of my close friends in particular who's Jewish and he's over there in Israel and he's actually fighting, which I have a greater respect for than a lot of people over here that are just talking and not actually willing to put their own lives on the line. So I always have a greater respect for him. And I feel that I owe him. And I owe perhaps others to give them my perspective on it. Because sometimes when you're engaged and you're upset and you're mad, just think about in our regular lives, when we're upset, think about the things that we think are okay to do. When we feel like we've been disrespected, when we feel like we've been violated, we respond in a way where we're willing to crash out and we think that it's justified based on what happened to us. But then we need somebody else that we're close to, that we trust, to calm us down, give us a better perspective, pull us away from doing something that we otherwise wouldn't do or wouldn't consider moral. But we're just justifying it based on what was done to us. So tough situations. Y'all let me know y'all thoughts and we'll head out here. So I'll see y'all soon. Appreciate y'all tapping in. Please like, and please subscribe if you haven't already. And maybe even share with some friends and family if you're feeling very generous. And on that note, I'll see y'all soon. Ew.